The protagonist travels through the world of Dragon Ball and receives a super lottery system. Cultivation, Technology, Super Saiyan 4. The plot is chaotic, the theatrical version, the desperate universe, and beyond time and space. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Brain Storage Area. Gigi. A bird landed on the young man's face, and the bird lightly pecked his handsome face a few times to wake him up from his coma. Where am I? The young man opened his eyes and couldn't help but wonder and speak when he saw the cloudless sky. Gigi. The bird landed on the young man's face and was startled by his sudden words, immediately flapping its wings and flying towards the distance. Forest. I've traveled through it. The young man sat up and looked around at the lush trees, which were clearly not his place of residence. Originally sleeping well at home, I inexplicably appeared in a strange environment, so all I can think of is time travel. Ding. The super lottery system has been successfully bound. Host. Shishing. Gender. Male. Age. 22. Race. Earthlings. Combat power. 3.56. Evaluation. A small scumbag who is not even as good as the 5 scumbags in a row. A mechanical prompt suddenly rang out in my mind, followed by a visual attribute panel popping up. This evaluation. Shishing immediately saw the evaluation of himself at the end of the attribute panel. Although it sounded very annoying, if there were no errors displayed on it, it seems that he is not even as good as the top 5 scumbags. Ding. Newcomers will be rewarded with 3 lottery opportunities. Should we start the lottery? The sound of the system rang again, and 2 option boxes with yes and no popped up at the same time. Does this still require prompts? It's like counting words in water. While roast, Shishing stretched out his hand on the yes option in the option box. Ding. The lottery is starting. The option box disappears, followed by a colorful turntable. This is obviously for lottery purposes, but there is no other information given on this turntable except for the different colors, so it is impossible to see what will be drawn. In the lottery. The turntable began to rotate at high speed, and a faint sound of inexplicable music could still be heard. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Super Scientist's Mind, Super Secret Scripts. 3 transformations of Immortal Transformation, Super Portable Laboratory. The reward has been distributed, please check it promptly by the host. After the sound of the system fell, Shishing felt a slight itch in his head, as if he was about to grow a brain. At the same time, there was an additional stream of information in my mind, which was all about the 3 transformations of immortals. The final reward for the Super Portable Laboratory is a fully equipped laboratory located in a different space. With the mind of a super scientist, Shishing couldn't help but dive into the super laboratory. Seeing the advanced instruments inside, this drill became somewhat uncontrollable. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed, during which Shishing had been staying in the Super Portable Laboratory. Fortunately, the Super Laboratory has a special function to independently maintain the owner's state, otherwise Shishing would definitely starve to death in the laboratory. Ding. Released the mission to repel the 2 Saiyan invaders on Earth. While Shishing was perfecting his first work, a system prompt suddenly sounded in his mind. The invading Saiyans. Are they Vegeta and Nappa? Shishing immediately recalled the plot related to the mission, but instead of immediately deploying, he remembered a fatal problem. It seems that I am too weak, and my fighting ability is not as good as that of Vegeta and Barcelona. However, soon Shishing came up with a solution and immediately turned his gaze to the first piece of work he was adjusting in front of him. Combat Assistive Device, resembling a small flying saucer, can provide various assistance during combat, such as space movement, releasing protective covers, and launching energy bombs. Relying solely on combat assistive devices is definitely not enough, and it mainly depends on Shishing himself. A combat power of over 3 points is definitely not enough, but he has cheats. San Juan Ren Xian Bien. This secret script is a strengthening move similar to the World King Fist, but the strengthening method is different. Originally, it was to absorb natural energy to elevate one's body into an immortal in a short period of time. There are 3 forms from strong to weak: human immortal, heavenly immortal, and divine immortal. The system produced 3 transformations of immortals, is directly imprinted in Xixing's mind, so Xixing can master the usage method without learning. With the addition of the combat aid device and 3 transformations of human immortals, Xixing believes that dealing with Vegeta and Naba is sufficient. Because he couldn't fly yet, Xixing could only quickly make a flying backpack and rush to the battlefield with combat assistance. After flying for about 10 minutes, a large crater appeared in Xixing's field of view, surrounded by some roads connecting the crater in all directions. If you guessed correctly, this crater should have been a city. It shouldn't be far. Xixing remembers that when Vegeta and Naba arrived on Earth, there was indeed a plot of destroying a city. It is speculated that after a short distance, they immediately overloaded the flying backpack and exploded with terrifying speed, flying in a direction. Drop. 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 After flying for 3 minutes, the nearby combat assistant suddenly sounded an alarm, which was an alert for a high-energy presence with high combat effectiveness. Okay, 3 transformations of immortals. Along the way, Xixing was not idle and had been absorbing natural energy. At this moment, the absorbed natural energy had reached the standard for entering a human immortal form. Close your eyes, the natural energy is gradually transmitted to every corner of the body, and the cells of the body are immediately sublimated. The mysterious white eye shadow emerges in the corners of the eyes of Greek star, and a mysterious white line appears in the eyebrows. Transform into a human immortal form. Sword. With a move from Xixing's hand, the natural energy around his body suddenly began to gather and transformed into a white long sword out of thin air. The white long sword circled around Xixing, then flew to Xixing's feet to drag his body, and then carried Xixing out at a speed that surpassed the overloaded state of the flying backpack. Uncle Bick. On the battlefield, a huge golden qigong wave attacked the young Sun Wufan, and a green figure quickly blocked in front of him. Watching the golden qigong wave about to hit Bike, Sun Wufan couldn't help but shout out loudly. Shua! And just as the golden qigong wave was about to hit, a sword light fell and directly cut the golden qigong wave apart, dividing it into 2 parts. The golden qigong wave rubbed against Bike and Sun Wufan's bodies and exploded on both sides and the rear. The shock wave of the explosion lifted a wave of sand and dust behind him, covering the surroundings. This gave Bike time to catch his breath, and he immediately turned around to take Sun Wufan away from Naba, who had just fired the golden qigong wave. What kind of person, come out of here? Seeing his deadly blow being blocked by someone, Naba felt a surge of anger in his heart and lifted his hand to dispel the sand and dust that was spreading around him. I'll be your opponent, Saiyan. The smoke and dust dispersed, gradually revealing a figure holding a white long sword, which was Xixing. Who is he? Clin, he's from Earth, right? Do you know him? No. I don't know him, his breath seems weak. The only remaining Z warriors in the rear, Bike, Sun Wufan, and Clin, were also surprised to see Xixing and couldn't help but discuss it. Humph. It's a shame that such a weak guy can defuse my attack. Seeing that Xixing was so weak, Barton became even more angry. The pride of the Saiyan made him unable to tolerate such a stain. Naba, don't underestimate the enemy. Go to hell with me. Vegeta sensed something was wrong and immediately reminded Naba that unfortunately Naba had already rushed out, unleashing a terrifying aura in her palm. Windward Talisman. Xixing didn't panic at all when he saw Naba attacking. He reached out and grabbed his hand, directly condensing a white talisman paper out of thin air, quickly sticking it to his body. The talisman paper burst out with blue light, which boosted Xixing's speed and easily dodged Naba's full punch as he rushed towards him. Damn it, Naba attacked several times in a row, but was dodged by Xixing and couldn't even touch his clothes. Xianlei formation. Xixing arranged a formation while dodging, forming a magic seal with one hand. A mysterious white formation appeared on the ground, while Naba was standing at the center of the formation. What kind of thing? Naba didn't feel right. After regaining some rationality, he immediately flew up and wanted to leave the range of the formation. Unfortunately, his reaction was too slow. The formation had already activated a lightning pillar, and Naba's figure was immediately engulfed by the lightning. Ah! A mournful scream came from the thunderbolt. Okay. What a powerful move. The three people behind Bike couldn't help but exclaim in surprise when they saw the move used by Xixing. Cut to waste. Vegeta didn't have much reaction, and such an attack only barely injured him. She raised her hand to help Naba destroy the formation. Drink. Suddenly, a roar came from the thunderbolt, and Naba desperately burst out with all his breath. Surprisingly, under the stimulation of lightning, he broke through his limits and directly broke through the formation of Xixing with the surging breath. This guy has become stronger. Klin felt the surging aura of Naba, which frightened him and made him take a few steps back. Let's go up and help. Bik's face was also a bit ugly, knowing that Naba and the others were completely unable to cope at this moment, but he was still the first to rush out and come to Xixing's side. Haha. Thank you so much for this power. Naba felt the surge of energy in his body, and his laughter couldn't stop. He felt that he might even be able to do it now. Hey! Naba, get rid of them quickly. Vegeta didn't pay attention to Naba, but looked seriously into the distance. At this moment, the number on the detector on his face was constantly jumping, almost approaching 5,000 and rapidly approaching. Is it necessary to be so nervous? Naba thought that Vegeta's serious expression was due to his own strength threatening him, and couldn't help but say in a strange tone. Fool! Vegeta cursed inwardly, and just as his curse fell, a figure flew over from a distance. The timeless hairstyle, dressed in orange martial arts attire, comes from the protagonist of Dragon Ball. Sun Wukong, also known as Carrot. Dad. Wukong. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing the arrival of Sun Wukong, Xixing, who seemed to have remained unchanged, actually breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. After the battle with Naba just now, he found that his current state was only slightly better than that of Naba, and he couldn't deal with Vegeta at all. Since Sun Wukong has arrived, Sun Wufan will fight against Vegeta, and others will join him in dealing with Naba, whose combat power has skyrocketed. Having figured out the strategy, Xixing immediately turned to Sun Wukong, who was already lagging behind and communicating with Klin and Sun Wufan. Coincidentally, Sun Wukong also looked up at Xixing, indicating that he had discussed Xixing. Hello, my name is Wukong, you deal with Vegeta, and I and the others deal with Naba. Sun Wukong was about to introduce himself, but was interrupted by Xixing, who spoke out his thoughts in one breath. Who is Vegeta? Dad, it's him. Sun Wufan pointed to the opposite Vegeta, who was observing Sun Wukong. For some reason, he felt that Sun Wukong had stronger combat power than the detected one. Humph. There's no need for Vegeta to take action against you. I can kill you all alone. Naba was very dissatisfied with Xixing's arrangement and directly exploded towards Xixing, with a completely improved speed compared to before. Wukong, please. Xixing dropped a sentence and urged the wind-riding talisman to increase its speed before wielding a sword to counterattack. At the moment when the two of them approached, Naba swung his fists. This time, even with the blessing of the windward rune on Xixing, he was just barely able to dodge. Fortunately, Xixing's sword still posed a threat to Naba. After being cut and injured, he began to dodge and for a while, the two of them struggled together. Wukong, do as he says. You should be able to deal with another Saiyan. Before Baik saw that Xixing had lost his previous composure and was ready to help, he turned his head to look at Sun Wukong and said. Don't worry, I have practiced very powerful moves and I can definitely defeat him. Sun Wukong responded confidently. Ha ha ha. Defeat me, it's up to you, lower-level warrior carrot. Vegeta kept watching Sun Wukong's side and couldn't help but burst out laughing when she heard Sun Wukong's confident speech. Carrot, this place is too troublesome. Let's move to another place and you can see the huge gap between you and me. After Becky finished speaking, he flew straight towards the distance, and Sun Wukong followed closely behind. Before leaving, he handed the remaining fairy bean to Klin. What's wrong, wasn't it quite arrogant just now? Xixing was punched and flew away, and Naba sneered as he watched Xixing fly out. Spirit Healing Talisman, Xixing inserted his sword into the ground to stabilize his retreating figure, and the void grabbed a talisman to stick to the spot where he had just been hit. His injury was immediately healed. Xixing looked at Naba and didn't charge any further. Now that the opponent had adapted to the speed bestowed by his own windward rune, charging was also a way to get beaten. Let's help you. Bic, Klin, and Sun Wufan came to Xixing's side. Xixing looked at the three people and suddenly remembered something. I have a plan. Xixing quickly expressed his thoughts, and the three of them were also surprised when they heard it. They immediately nodded and agreed to Xixing's plan. Xixing raised his hand and grabbed two talismans, sticking them one after another onto Baik and Klin. Then the two of them took a few steps back, leaving only Xixing and Sun Wufan to confront Naba. Do you have any plans? It's useless. Naba opened his mouth to mock upon seeing the situation. Are you afraid? Wufan. Xixing glanced at Sun Wufan and couldn't help but ask, thinking that he was still a child about 5 years old. Not afraid, I also want to fight. Sun Wufan's gaze was firm, and his tone remained unwavering. Seeing Sun Wufan's attitude, Xixing couldn't help but admire him. He reached out and touched Sun Wufan's head, while also injecting his natural energy into his body to restore the stamina he had consumed in the previous battle and face the enemy in a full state. A disc-shaped object landed in the air, which was a combat aid device that had been prepared for a long time. The program inside it began to run, setting the aid objects as Xixing and Sun Wufan, and setting the weaker Sun Wufan as the priority aid object. Go ahead. Wufan. Drink. With a command from Xixing, Sun Wufan immediately burst into a frenzy and rushed towards Naba, following behind Xixing. Naba, who had already been impatiently waiting, showed disdain for the face on his face as he rushed forward. He waved his fist and wanted to take down the leader, Xixing, first. Whoosh! Xixing could only dodge this punch, but he did not. The combat assistant immediately made a judgment and activated the space transfer, transferring Xixing directly behind Naba. A sword fell and slashed a bloody wound directly behind Xixing, causing his body to stumble forward in pain. Drink. Sun Wufan saw the situation and took the opportunity to kick it with all his might, directly kicking it in the face and flying it away. Damn it! As soon as Naba flew out, he immediately supported the ground with one hand, flipped over to stabilize his body, angrily looked at Sun Wufan who had kicked him, and directly opened his mouth to lock in a powerful Qigong wave. The power of this Qigong wave is comparable to the blow that Bic wanted to block for Sun Wufan, and Sun Wufan had no time to dodge it. The combat aid responded by opening a layer of energy shield in front of Sun Wufan, but this protective shield can only partially dissipate the power of the Qigong wave. Magic Flash Light. Sun Wufan naturally knew this and immediately placed his hands on his head, starting to gather energy and use his own strength to dissolve the Qigong wave that halved his strength at the moment when the protective cover broke. What? 7-star Gathering Spirit Formation. Na Ba was shocked when his attack was resolved by Sun Wufan. Suddenly, a sense of crisis struck and he immediately looked at Xixing. At this moment, Xixing stood at the center of a formation, and 7 starlights flickered in the formation. The starlight detached from the ground and landed on Xixing's white long sword held high. 7-star sword. Starlight is embedded on the sword body, transforming into an incredibly sharp sword energy that spreads out in all directions. The ground is instantly cut with several smooth, mirror-like sword marks. Whoosh! The combat assistance device launched another space transfer to transfer the star Hikari. Upon seeing Hikari disappear, Naba immediately alerted the surrounding area. Look at the sword. Suddenly, Xixing shouted in the air, and with a sneer, Naba raised his hand and shot a more powerful Qigong wave at Xixing in the air than before. The combat aid immediately opened its energy shield, but unfortunately it couldn't stop it at all. Xixing was directly blasted into the sky by this blow and fell to the ground without any movement. Brother Xixing. Wufan saw the situation and shouted loudly as he flew towards Xixing. Clin, take action. Okay. Suddenly, 2 voices came from the corner, and Barton was surprised that he had not noticed these 2 people just now. Upon closer reflection, these 2 people did indeed seem to have disappeared. Chi circle slash. A circular air blade struck, and although the timing was right and the angle was extremely sharp, it was still dodged by Nakan Kan, leaving only a scratch on his body. Magic Guan Guang kill cannon. Bix's figure quickly approached Naba, and in order to hit him, he chose to take the risk of getting closer. Go to hell. Upon seeing this, Naba threw a big Qigong wave directly at Naba, while Bike directly fired the Magic Guan light killing cannon, confident that the blow he had gathered with all his strength could penetrate the opponent's Qigong wave. And the fact was that the Magic Guan light killing cannon easily penetrated Naba's Qigong wave, but because the Qigong wave blocked the line of sight, this strike did not kill Naba but only pierced through one of his arms. Ah, you bastard! Naba screamed and cursed while his pierced arm lost most of its flesh and blood, and the flesh and blood at the junction broke inch by inch and eventually fell to the ground. Pain and anger were brewing in Naba's heart, and in the end, they completely erupted and rushed towards Bic in front of him. Bic wanted to dodge when he saw this, but unfortunately his speed couldn't compare to the completely explosive Naba, and he was punched through his abdomen directly. Bic! Uncle Bic! Clin and Sun Wufan exclaimed in surprise at the sight. You! Fell for it. Bic's arms stretched out, like a snake, tightly entwining Naba. Whoosh! A sword shadow quickly fell from the sky, and 7 starlights flickered on the golden shadow. It was the 7-star sword that Xixing had just blessed with the formation. Xixing, who was lying on the ground on one side, struggled to get up, with a talisman scattered from his body. He held the magic seal in his hand and exerted all his strength to control the soon-to-fall 7-star sword. Release it for me. Feeling the deadly sword aura of the 7-star sword, Naba wanted to burst and break free from the constraints of Bic. Unfortunately, the 7-star sword fell faster than him, and the tip of the sword directly inserted into the opponent's bare head, killing him. Ding! Congratulations on your speed assistance in killing the Saiyan Naba. Complete 50% of the task and receive a prize draw opportunity. After Naba was killed, a prompt sound from the system immediately came to Xixing's mind. Hurry up. Hurry up the system and draw a prize to enhance your strength. Xixing took a few breaths and directly used the lottery opportunity he had just won. After this battle, he realized the importance of strength, so at this moment, he urgently hoped to improve his strength. Ding! The lottery is starting. A colorful turntable appeared in front of me. In the lottery. The turntable began to rotate, emitting pleasant music. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Pure Transformation Super Saiyan 4. Super Saiyan 4. Upon hearing that he had received the reward, Xixing was so shocked that he was on the brink of death and sat up in shock. Sun Wufan, who was standing beside him, jumped and looked at Xixing in confusion. What's wrong with brother Xixing? What is a Super Saiyan? As soon as Sun Wufan finished speaking, everyone present except Xixing suddenly changed their faces and looked in one direction. What's going on with this gradually rising aura? It's Vegeta's anger. Why suddenly? Big confirmed that it was Vegeta's anger and then glanced at the fairy beans given by Klin in his hand. My current situation is indeed very bad, and the possibility of not immediately recovering from death is very high. I don't know if there is anything that comes to mind about Sun Wufan. If Wukong is defeated, then Vegeta will definitely kill all of them, so, Klin, give that person the fairy beans to eat. I can't die yet. Big trembled as he handed out the fairy bean in his hand. But Klin hesitated as he looked at the fairy beans and didn't take them immediately. If Vegeta wins, we won't be able to survive. Big said seriously. Okay. Klin reluctantly took the fairy beans and then came to Xixing's side. Here you are. Eating this can quickly restore your strength. Go help Wukong. Chapter 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Leave it to me. Xixing understands the importance of the matter, and here people can be resurrected after death. Therefore, it is better to prioritize solving strong enemies and take over the fairy bean server. Come on. Come on. With the chewing of Xian Dou, Xixing suddenly felt his body light, and his strength and injuries recovered in an instant. I'm going. After saying that, Xixing raised his hand to summon the 7-star sword to defend his sword. Unfortunately, just when he started to move, the white-eye shadow at the corner of his eyes and the rune pattern at the center of his eyebrows suddenly disappeared, which unexpectedly relieved the human immortal form. Damn it! Feeling the loss of strength in his body, Xixing looked awkwardly at Klin, realizing that his natural energy had been depleted. Well. Klin, why don't you come with me? Ah. I don't seem to be able to help you with my combat power. Cough, I can't fly. My flying backpack was also damaged just now, so I need you to take me over. Although without the blessing of natural energy, Xixing still has just obtained the transformation of Super Saiyan 4, so he is not afraid of Vegeta at all. He felt that even if he transformed into Super Saiyan 4, he couldn't immediately learn about Kephi. As for the moves used in the 3 Transformations of Immortals secret script when entering the 1 Transformation of Immortals form, unfortunately, those moves can only be used after entering the immortal state. Okay. Okay. Upon hearing that Xixing was so powerful that he couldn't fly, the huge contrast left Klin stunned for a while before he realized it. He immediately took Xixing to the battlefield. What kind of thing is that? Because they were not far away, the two quickly arrived at the battlefield, but as soon as they arrived, they saw a familiar and huge mountain-like figure, which was Vegeta, who had transformed into a giant ape. Ah! A scream came, and Xixing and Klin recognized that it was Wukong's scream and immediately looked at Vegeta's feet. There, Wukong's whole body was injured, and one leg was trampled on by Vegeta's huge foot. Sorry, I accidentally stepped on your leg and broke it. Vegeta proudly spoke while lifting her feet, looking at Sun Wukong's twisted thighs with satisfaction on her face. Vegeta, you bastard, let go of Goku. Suddenly, a shout came from the air, and upon hearing it, Vegeta frowned and looked up into the air, immediately discovering Xixing and Klin. Xixing, it's up to you. Wait, don't. After Klin finished speaking, he immediately let go of Xixing. Xixing had intended to transform first, as he was just a small scumbag who didn't transform. If he fell from such a high place, he would definitely die. Unfortunately, it was already a bit late when he spoke up. Go to hell. Vegeta saw the falling star Shi and directly opened her mouth to shoot a purple Qigong wave, hitting Shi in mid-air. The protagonist plunges the street, and this book is over. How could it be? After the purple Qigong wave hit, it produced a cloud of smoke and dust, so Xixing did not die. At the moment when the attack was about to hit, he transformed into Super Saiyan 4 in time, and with the defense of Super Saiyan 4, he forcefully received the powerful Qigong wave from Vegeta. Wow! Although it was blocked, Xixing still fell directly from the air because he couldn't fly, and happened to land next to Sun Wukong. Although it doesn't hurt much, it's better to learn to fly quickly. Xixing climbed up from the ground in a somewhat disheveled state, muttering to himself. Hello. Hello, we've met again, but I still don't know your name. Sun Wukong, who was weak on the side, greeted Xixing directly. My name is Xixing. I'll take you to Klin's place first. After Xixing said his name, he immediately picked up Sun Wukong, who was seriously injured, and looked into the air to search for Klin's figure. But as soon as he looked up, Klin didn't see it. Instead, he saw Vegeta's face twisted together with anger. You bastard, how dare you ignore me? Angry Vegeta struck with a heavy punch, her huge fist constantly expanding in Xixing's field of vision. Fortunately, Super Saiyan 4 dodged this heavy punch with just one dodge. Vegeta punched down one after another, but unfortunately the attack was as fierce as a tiger. At first glance, the damage was 0.5, and the attack did not even touch Xixing. Where else are you hiding? Vegeta couldn't hit no matter how hard she tried, so she flew into the air and gathered her hands to unleash her best skills in Prince's War. Cars-sized Qigong bullets rained down like raindrops. Damn it! Upon seeing the situation on the ground, Xixing immediately accelerated and charged in one direction, wanting to escape the attack range of the gas bomb. Xixing, can't you control your breath? Is it time to say this now? If using gas. Boom. 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 Although Xixing is already fast in the form of Super Saiyan 4 solely based on his physical speed, he still cannot escape the coverage range of the gas bomb in time. Humph. You've been blasted into scum. Ha ha ha. After feeling about it, Vegeta in the air withdrew her hands and looked at the large hole on the ground that had been blasted by her. Confident that she had already eliminated the two of them, Vegeta couldn't help but burst into laughter with pride. You're laughing so hard. Xixing's voice suddenly emanated from the thick smoke that had not dissipated from the ground, followed by a figure wrapped in a golden aura flying out, directly colliding with Vegeta's forehead at a speed that Vegeta could not react to. Ah! Super Saiyan 4 is not something that can be compared to a giant ape, and the hardness of the head is the same. This collision made Vegeta scream in pain and even stumble back a few steps. Scratch. Xixing landed on a small hill with Sun Wukong. At this moment, Xixing's forehead turned red, and tears welled up in his eyes. He spoke the hardest. You know my strength now. You bastard. Vegeta endured the excruciating pain on her forehead, pressing her hands together and reaching back to gather her own energy, preparing to use her strongest move. Is that right? I'll come too. Seeing Vegeta's appearance, Xixing immediately guessed what the other person wanted to do, and then put on the classic posture of the Dragon Ball, which was the posture of the turtle-style Qigong wave. Just now, during a crisis, Sun Wukong taught Xixing the technique of controlling Qi and barely learned the method of controlling Qi in order to escape from the prince's tactics. Since he already knows how to control his Qi, he can't be intimidated by Bo. It's just that Xixing has overlooked a point. He's just barely able to control his Qi and still can't use it freely. The opposite Vegeta has already started shouting the name of the move, but only a little bit of air has gathered on the side of Xixing. Damn it, why is the other side so fast? Xixing, use this. Just as Xixing was anxious, Sun Wukong behind him suddenly shouted out, and the little bit of energy that Xixing's attention had gathered dissipated. Cannon. After Vegeta finished charging, she sneered and pushed her hands forward to release the gathered terrifying energy, heading straight towards the mountain where the two of them were located. This is the energy I have gathered before, as long as I lock onto the other persons. I know how to use it, just look at me. Sun Wukong was quickly explaining the use of the Yuan Qi bullet, but Xixing interrupted it and confidently turned around to face the terrifying energy wave that was attacking. One turn, immortal. Xixing raised his right hand to receive the elemental energy, and instead of transforming it into an elemental energy bullet, he activated the 3 transformations of human immortal transformation, as most of these elemental energies were extracted from nature. The 3 transformations of immortals is a technique that uses natural energy to elevate the body and enhance it, rather than a technique that forcefully exhausts the body like Jiwang Fist. Therefore, it does not conflict with the transformation of Super Saiyan 4. Finally, a new shape was born, based on the shape of Super Saiyan 4, except that the eye shadow of both eyes changed from red to white, and the hair also changed color and appeared mysterious lines. Red and white, its name is Ren Xian Chao 4. Sword. Xixing reached out and grabbed the void, and the white long sword immediately condensed in his hand, swinging directly at the terrifying Qigong wave. The sharp sword energy was like cutting tofu, directly dividing the Qigong wave in half and even directly injuring Vegeta. The Qigong wave, which was split in half, exploded in the rear, triggering a terrifying shockwave that instantly shattered the surrounding hills, including those at the foot of Xixing. Xixing did not have any impact, but Sun Wukong, who was lying flat, could not fly up and fell heavily injured with gravel, causing him to faint again. Wukong. Klin suddenly appeared and promptly stepped on the gravel to catch Sun Wukong, who fell to the ground. Klin, Wukong will leave it to you. Seeing Klin appear, Xixing stopped paying attention and focused his attention on Vegeta. Xixing, as long as you cut off his tail, you can relieve him of his giant ape transformation. Klin loudly highlighted his known weaknesses to Xixing, hoping to be of some help. Xixing nodded casually in response, and even if he were a giant ape like Vegeta Xixing, he was confident that he could easily handle it. This guy. Vegeta felt that the aura of Xixing at this moment was simply unfathomable, and she dared not leave for a moment. Vegeta, if you don't act first, I won't be polite. Seeing Vegeta holding on and not taking action, Xixing smiled proudly and then burst into anger as he rushed towards Vegeta. Don't underestimate me. Vegeta remained stubborn, believing that Xixing was just bluffing and bursting with anger. 2 figures, one big and one small, quickly approached. Xixing swung his long sword, and Vegeta swung his huge fist. Their figures crossed directly before slowly stopping. Ah! Vegeta let out a scream first, and blood sprayed out from the huge wound that Hester had cut in his chest at that moment. Xixing handsome shook off the blood stained on his sword and turned to continue provoking Vegeta. Vegeta, do you only have this strength? Why don't you surrender directly? This way, I can spare your life and help you introduce a wife. Bastard, I am the prince of the Saiyan people. How could I possibly lose to someone like you on Earth? Vegeta suppressed her injuries while roaring and firing gas bombs to unleash the prince's tactics. Since you don't give up, then I'll fight until you give up. Faced with the incoming gas bomb Hikari, he swung his sword one by one, while narrowing the distance to Vegeta. As he approached, he swung his sword again and slashed his chest, forming an X-shaped wound. As blood continued to flow out, Vegeta also became increasingly weak. Surrender obediently. Feeling that using a sword would accidentally kill Vegeta, Xixing used his foot to directly kick Vegeta in the face and knock him down to the ground. Go to hell. Vegeta did not give in and raised her hand to shoot a Qigong bullet, but unfortunately, it was easily cut open by Xixing. Then cut off your tail first. Xixing couldn't resist for a moment, so he fixed his gaze on Vegeta's tail. When he raised his sword and prepared to swing it, his face suddenly changed. Chapter 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There is no doubt that the new form of Renxian Super 4 is strong, but because it is a brand new posture and has not been completely improved, there are both advantages and disadvantages. Super 1 can initially lead to emotional instability, Super 2 can become arrogant due to their surging strength, Super 3 can quickly lose stamina, and almost every new form will have some minor accidents at the beginning. The system rewards 3 transformations of Immortal Transformation and Pure Transformation, which had a prerequisite for Xixing to use directly before the reward, so he did not carefully understand these 2 transformations. After entering the immortal form, the natural energy in the body of 3 transformations of immortals will begin to dissipate. Now, the fusion with Super Saiyan 4 has also affected the energy. Saving Super Saiyan 4. Super Saiyan 4 uses gas as its energy source, and the gas of Hikari is evaluated by the system, as there is not much residue in the residue. The maintenance time of this loss of Super Saiyan 4 became extremely short, and it changed from a human immortal Super 4 to a human immortal form. Vegeta also felt the change in the gas of Xixing and directly flicked the tail closest to Xixing to explore. This was too sudden, coupled with a sudden decrease in strength, and Xixing didn't have time to react. He was directly knocked away by the tail of Vegeta, hitting a stone peak heavily. Cough cough. I didn't expect my strength to drop so dramatically all of a sudden. Xixing was embedded in the rock, coughed up a mouthful of blood, and finally did not forget a roast. Haha. Although I don't know what's going on, you seem to have weakened. Vegeta laughed and climbed up from the ground, mocking the mountain peak where Xixing was located. Humph. You're already covered in injuries all over, and your combat power may not be as strong as you started with. Xixing endured the pain and pulled his body out of the mountain while refuting it. It's enough to deal with you now. After finishing speaking, Vegeta raised her hand and fired a Qigong bullet, feeling a bit hesitant and wanting to test it. Slash. Xixing instinctively swung his sword and wanted to split the Qigong bullet in half when he saw the situation, but unfortunately, the Qigong bullet that turned into a giant ape was not something he could easily resolve at the moment. Boom. The explosion caused by the fall of the gas bomb directly engulfed Xixing, who was in a sword-wielding position, but after the explosion, there was no scream from Xixing. Whoosh! Xixing stepped on a flying sword and flew out of the smoke and dust generated by the explosion, with a green shield gradually breaking through his body. It's not the shield of the combat aid device, but rather a formation that is arranged in time before the explosion to prevent injury. Suddenly, a large shadow fell, followed by a huge fist falling, and the shattered shield directly shot down Xixing from the air. Cough, I can't do it, I can't even fight. Using a sword to prop up his body, a sense of powerlessness inexplicably rose in his heart as he looked at the star of Vegetahi, while regretting why he didn't directly kill the other party earlier. Bang! Vegeta landed in front of Xixing, and the movement of the other person landing made Xixing forcefully stand up and fall to the ground. It seems that you have really weakened. Watching Xixing fall to the ground, Vegeta's fear completely dissipated and she lifted her foot to step on Xixing's right leg. Ah! Feeling the broken bone of his right leg, a pig-like scream emanated from Xixing's mouth, and even his consciousness began to blur. I will torture you well until I torture you to death. As Vegeta spoke, she reached out a finger and poked it at the other leg of Xixing, instead of directly discarding it. Instead, she slowly exerted her strength to increase the pain she had to endure. Stop. Stop. Ah. Xixing felt that his right leg was gradually being squeezed, and immediately began to struggle desperately. Unfortunately, in the face of absolute strength, Xixing's struggle had no effect, and in the end, his right leg was also scrapped. The pain has already made Xixing numb, and foam has started to overflow from his mouth. However, natural energy is still operating in its body in the way of 3 transformations of immortal transformation, preventing Xixing from completely falling into a coma. At the same time, natural energy is not lost for some reason, but is quietly being absorbed by Xixing's body, transforming his body. His broken legs are also healing at a visible speed to the naked eye. This won't work, then you go to hell. After Vegeta finished speaking, she extended her index finger and prepared to pierce through the heart of Hikari, but suddenly froze just as her finger was about to touch Hikari. Chi circle slash. A circular air blade flew out from its span, and it was Klin who promptly attacked and cut off Vegeta's tail from behind. Ah! Vegeta felt the rapid loss of power within her body, and couldn't help but let out an unwilling roar in her mouth. In just a few seconds, the massive figure quickly shrank and quickly returned to my original body shape. You bastard! Vegeta angrily turned around and looked at Klin, who had just ambushed her. Shit! It's terrible! Seeing Vegeta looking angrily over, Klin immediately turned around and ran away. He knew that even if Vegeta changed back, it was not something he could handle. I want to escape. Seeing that Klin wanted to escape, Vegeta immediately rushed over and prepared a move in her right hand to deal with Klin. However, what Vegeta didn't notice was that as he turned around to pursue Klin, Hixing suddenly sat up behind him, and then his broken leg stood up again. Super Saiyan 4. As soon as Shi Xing stood firm, he transformed directly, and his golden aura erupted on him, transforming into the form of Super Saiyan 4 in the blink of an eye. What? Feeling the breath behind her, Vegeta was startled and quickly turned around. Turtle Pie, Shi Xing didn't waste any time and directly put on the starting posture of the turtle-style Qigong wave. This time, all the remaining Qi in his body was gathered between his hands, emitting a dazzling blue light. Damn it, die for me. Upon seeing this, Vegeta immediately released a blow prepared to kill Klin in a flash, and the golden Qigong wave quickly approached Hikari. Qigong, facing the incoming golden Qigong wave, Shi Xing's face remained unchanged as he continued to accumulate energy. Wave. Just as the Qigong wave was about to reach him, Shi Xing finally gathered his strength and pushed his hands forward, releasing all the gathered strength directly. The blue Qigong wave instantly engulfed the approaching golden Qigong wave, attacking Vegeta like a straight yellow dragon. No. This is impossible. Vegeta let out an unwilling roar and was eventually engulfed by the blue Qigong wave, completely reduced to ashes. Ding! Congratulations to the host for assisting in killing Vegeta. Reward the host. 2 lucky draw opportunities. The prompt sound of the system rang in his mind, but unfortunately, Shi Xing, who had exhausted all his strength, did not hear it and collapsed into a coma. Shi Xing didn't know how long he had been unconscious, but when he woke up again, he found himself lying in a white room with a bandage wrapped around his body. Shi Xing sat up and looked left and right, and immediately saw Sun Wukong sleeping soundly on the bed next to him. It seemed that this was a hospital. Sun Wukong's situation was much worse than him, with almost his entire body wrapped in thick bandages and his legs cast and suspended in mid-air. In this situation, I don't know how he slept so soundly. It seems that my last blow should have solved Vegeta. Shi Xing recalled his last memory and realized that he had gained a little more strength in his body after being released from the human immortal form. He immediately stood up and transformed into Super Saiyan 4, giving Vegeta the final blow. At that time, he fainted after using his last move, so I don't know the specific outcome. Now it seems that his strike has successfully resolved the crisis. However, this is just the beginning, and there will be Frieza, artificial humans, and Buo behind. In short, the enemy will become stronger and we must improve our strength as soon as possible. By the way, a lottery. Shi Xing thought that since he had solved Vegeta, he should have rewarded him with the number of lucky draws. To quickly improve his strength, he had to rely on the system. Opening the system, the first thing that appears is the personal panel. Host. Shi Xing gender. Male age. 22 race. Earthlings combat power. 57 evaluation. Under the influence of the 3 transformations of immortals, I finally rely on the status of the 5 scumbags in the battle. Lottery frequency. 0. Can 3 transformations of immortals improve permanent combat power? Upon seeing the evaluation of the system, Xixing was surprised. He thought that 3 transformations of immortals was just something similar to the immortal mode in Hokage, and did not expect it to permanently enhance combat effectiveness. Although the speed of improvement is not fast, it is always stronger than nothing. After reading my own information, I immediately followed up with a lottery draw. When I saw that there were 2 lottery draws, I immediately issued a lottery instruction to the system. The system is conducting a lottery. Please confirm the number of lucky draws. 1, 2, twice. Ding. The lottery is starting. The sound of the system fell, and a colorful turntable immediately appeared. In the lottery. The turntable began to rotate at high speed, and pleasant music played. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Super Technology Super Weapon, Super Technology Super Gene Cultivation. 2 Super Technologies. Ding. The reward has been distributed. Please check it carefully, host. Although rewards cannot directly enhance Xixing's combat effectiveness, Xixing now possesses the brain of a super scientist, and his thirst for knowledge about this super technology is clearly greater than his pursuit of strength. A large amount of information flooded into the brain, and even the brain of a super scientist with huge brain capacity couldn't withstand it for a moment, accidentally fainting again. In the universe, a room on a huge disc-shaped spacecraft. Are you saying that Vegeta and his team died on Earth with low combat effectiveness? Frieza, sitting on the aircraft, looked at the reporter's subordinates and asked in a cold tone. Yes. Yes. The subordinates responded cautiously, fearing that it would anger Frieza and lead to murder. What a waste. I thought this naturally arrogant Saiyan prince could be of any use. It seems like I really value him. Frieza pointed at the aircraft, clearly feeling a bit angry in her heart. After all, she still had some expectations on Vegeta to some extent, but now it's the result. Where is that Earth? In a remote galaxy, it has been detected that the average combat power of a low-level planet is below 100. However, I have obtained important information about where to report to you. Interesting information, come and listen. The subordinates did not neglect, immediately took out a combat power detector and played out information about the Dragon Ball that came from Vegeta and Nappa. Namek Star, I didn't expect such a magical thing to be there. Order me to go down to Namek Star. Yes. King Frieza. Chapter 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The next day, Xixing woke up again, and this time the ward was a bit lively. Klin, Sun Wufan, Turtle Immortal, Chi-Chi, Bull Demon King, Puer, Wulong, and Bulma. Except for Bike, almost everyone who could come came here came. Visiting Sun Wukong and Xixing was one of the reasons, and it was also to discuss going to Namek Star. Although Bike survived this battle with the intervention of Xixing, 3 people were still killed. Tianjin rice, dumplings, and Yamu tea. Originally, Klin and his team planned to resurrect the 3 of them after the Earth's Dragon Balls could be reused, but Bic revealed that Namek also had Dragon Balls, which led to the plan to go to that planet. Originally, it was supposed to be to find the spacecraft of the gods and use it to travel to Namek, but it is unknown whether it was due to the butterfly effect of the arrival of Hikari. The spacecraft of the gods accidentally fell off a cliff and was shattered by rubble, which also ruined the plan to go to Namek. I have a way to go to Namek Star. Just as a few people were at a loss, Xixing suddenly spoke up and caught everyone's attention. Brother Xixing, you're awake. Sun Wufan was the first to speak, and he was very happy to see Xixing wake up. After all, Xixing was the one who contributed the most in this battle besides Sun Wukong. What method did you just say you had a way to go to Namek Star? Burma anxiously asked that the current relationship between Burma and Yamucha is still a boyfriend and girlfriend, and Burma is naturally very anxious about the survival of her boyfriend. I can build a spaceship. Cut by is happy. Before Xing could finish speaking, Bulma interrupted him. Burma is confident that her propulsion system is currently the most advanced on Earth, and her family cannot even build such a spacecraft, let alone the person in front of her who seems to be a few years younger than herself. Wait, Bulma, maybe Xing can really make such a spaceship. Klin spoke up, feeling that Hikari was very mysterious, maybe he could really make such a spaceship. I believe in brother Xing. Sun Wufan stood directly on the side of Xing. Okay, if he can't do it then, don't blame me for being impolite to you. Bulma, why did you treat us? Stop talking nonsense. Seeing that Burma was really angry, Klin immediately covered his mouth and couldn't help but think to himself. It seems that the death of Yamuti has had a great impact on Bulma, and there is no warning when she gets angry. Xing, you are really amazing. With such strong strength, you can even manufacture spacecraft. This time, it was Sun Wukong on the bed who spoke up, and without any hypocrisy, he truly admired Xing a little more. I'm not that skilled, that. Burma, you may not need to prepare some equipment in advance, so. Xing looked at Bulma and hesitated for a moment before finally saying what he wanted to say. Oh, I'd like to hear what equipment our world's #1 capsule company doesn't have. Burma turned his head and said with a strange tone, after all, he was not familiar with Xing and wouldn't just shout at him. I don't know if you can understand, let me draw it for you. You guy. Give him a pen and paper. Here we go. Xing took a pen and paper from Klin, closed his eyes, and recalled the 2 super technologies he had digested all day. When he opened his eyes, he began his performance on paper. At first, Burma still hugged her chest with both hands and looked unhappy, but when she saw Xing drawing a picture, she reached out and brought it in front of her. I want to see what this kid can do. At first, Burma still thought this way in his heart, but when he saw some mechanical structures and formulas he had never seen before, he changed his mind. With a shocked look on his face, he looked at Xing and had already drawn more than 10 more pictures. Such a complex structural diagram, I drew over a dozen in the blink of an eye. Is this still a person? He is even more abnormal than his own genius. The painting is done, I may need to rest for a few more days. Could you please prepare these devices in these days, Burma? Xing handed the last structural diagram to Bulma and said with a smile, not surprised by Bulma's smiling expression. My own super scientist's brain takes a day to digest, and although Burma is a genius, he is not a top scientist like his father, so it is normal not to understand. Don't worry, make sure to prepare in advance. Hey. Dad, hurry home and stop dating Mom. There's something very important. Burma left the ward anxiously, holding the blueprint in one hand and making a phone call in the other. Hee Burma, it's still the same as before. Klin smiled and said. I also want to go, but unfortunately it will take a month for Xiendo to recover. Sun Wukong said expectantly. I'm going too. Sun Wufan also spoke in agreement. No way. A furious shout interrupted Sun Wufan's imagination, and it was none other than Chi-Chi who spoke. Wufan, you're still a child. What if you have to study for a long time? But everyone is working hard, and I also want to. Don't say stupid things, you're just a child, there's no need to think about that. Although Chi-Chi is very opposed, Sun Wufan still insists on going. This made Xing on the side very strange. In the original work, Sun Wufan insisted on going to Namek Star to find the Dragon Ball to resurrect Bike because Bike was dead. But now that Bike is still alive, what is the reason why Sun Wufan insisted so much? The reason is a bit far-fetched, because Bik wants to go, so Sun Wufan also wants to go. After all, Bic is Wufan's biological father. The injuries on Xixing's body were actually fully recovered under the transformation of natural energy, but due to excessive consumption and various stimuli, his mental state was very weak and he needed to sleep to recover. I rested for another 3 days before leaving the hospital. Are you ready so quickly? Xixing sat in the car and asked in surprise about Kling driving. Burma said that, and the specific situation will be known once it arrives. Kling replied that he really didn't know the actual situation. Today, while sleeping well in the Turtle Immortal house, he suddenly received an order from Bulma and had no choice but to drive over. Quickly, Kling's car arrived at the capsule company and, following Bulma's instructions, Kling drove into a garage. Just as the car drove in, the ground suddenly began to descend and took the two of them directly to the huge laboratory hidden underground. How impressive! The grandeur of the various instruments in the massive laboratory surprised the inexperienced Kling, who opened his chin wide. Surprisingly, everything is really ready. Xixing was also somewhat surprised. He briefly scanned and found many of the equipment he needed. It was completely unexpected for Xixing to prepare so much in just 3 days. Kling, Xixing. As soon as the two got off the car, Burma stepped on a pulley and approached them. Burma, are you all responsible for this alone? Kling asked curiously. Of course not, it was done by me and my dad together. How does Xixing feel? Burma replied. Very impressive, truly worthy of being the world's top scientist. Xixing nodded in response. Then let's go to the main control room together and discuss the plan for making a space flight. As for Klein, you can go back. Ah. Don't you let me visit. This place was finally fixed. If you break something that is difficult to repair, go back and wait for notification. Okay. Kling reluctantly climbed back onto his car and used the elevator he had taken down to leave the underground laboratory. After Kling left, Burma brought Xixing to the main control room of the laboratory, where most of the operations could be carried out. Are you Xixing? The structural diagram you drew is really impressive. Briff was operating something in front of a huge computer. When he saw the two of them coming in, he stopped his hand movements and the flying seat under his buttocks took him to the front of Xixing. Thank you, Dr. Briff praised me. Xixing humbly responded. Not bad, should I be my son? Lol. Dad. I already have a boyfriend. I mean your sister. Let's discuss the plan for making a spacecraft then. Seeing the topic getting more and more crooked, Xixing immediately changed the topic. He felt that it was better to have the ability to protect oneself before discussing marriage. I have prepared a preliminary plan, let's see how it goes together. After Bree finished speaking, a small circular robot flew over and projected an octopus-like spaceship in front of the three people. How ugly, Dad. Do you have it? How about improving your appearance like this? Xixing made a simple operation, and the appearance of the spaceship changed directly from an octopus to a streamlined spaceship with both mechanical and SCI-fi elements. Then add some weapons, and... As Xixing spoke out his thoughts and operated, he quickly changed the original plan from scratch in the blink of an eye. We're just going to Namek Star to search for the Dragon Ball, not to go to war. There's no need to transform it into this. Burma looked at the data of each weapon with some confusion and asked. Although the Namek people are beautiful and gentle, they are not the only ones in the universe. Xixing replied. It's okay, anyway Xixing won't be used in any bad places. Having more weapons can increase a sense of security. Dr. Briff, on the other hand, didn't pay that much attention and began to operate while speaking. Okay, in that case, it will take 2 months to complete, won't it be a bit late? Burma reluctantly finished speaking and joined the work, but Xixing did not intend to change the plan and immediately joined in. It's only a matter of time before 3 scientists work together, combined with advanced equipment, to create a spaceship. Chapter 6. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Time flies by rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, half a month has passed. At night, in the underground laboratory of the capsule company, Burma and Briff were resting in the main control room, while Xixing came to an instrument. I don't know how it's been cultivated. Xixing rubbed his heavy eyelids and reached out to touch the instrument, which immediately popped up a virtual screen displaying Number 1 Super Gene. 100%, cultivation completed. Finally cultivated. Seeing the progress bar above reaching 100%, Xixing's drowsiness immediately dissipated, and he immediately operated the instrument to extract the cultivated instrument. I saw a small test tube pop out of the machine, containing blue liquid-like genes. Implanting super genes into the human body can turn people into super warriors, just like the American team, but the effect is much stronger than the American team, and it also has growth potential. However, the implantation carries the risk of accidentally becoming irrational monsters. Xixing naturally dares not take risks. The purpose of creating this is to implant the mechanical knowledge used in super weapon, and the biological genetic knowledge used in super gene cultivation, into the mechanical life form super weapon warcraft. Number 1 Super Weapon Warcraft. 100%, cultivation completed, awaiting implantation of super genes and super weapon cores. At the same time as the screen popped up, 2 slots popped up, one to insert the super mechanical core and the other to insert the super gene. The core of the super weapon, Xixing, has already been prepared, and it is necessary for all super weapons. When making the spaceship, an additional one was easily made. Insert 2 required items, and the instrument immediately starts running. A blue light blooms from inside the instrument, accompanied by a powerful energy wave, causing the entire instrument to tremble slightly. What's going on? It's so noisy. Bulma was awakened by the movement of the instrument in the main control room and walked out directly to inspect. Soon, he saw Xixing standing in front of the instrument. Xixing, don't sleep at night. What are you doing? Burma said with a resentful expression as she haggled. I made something that can become combat effectiveness. Combat power, is it a weapon? With so many weapons, you still. Before Burma could finish speaking, the running instrument suddenly stopped. Production completed, Super Weapon Battle Beast, Fairy Fox White Tail. With the prompt sound, the instrument immediately opened the cultivation chamber, and Bai Wei walked out of the chamber. Big eyes, snow-white hair, and a furry tail. Wow! So cute. Bulma, who thought it was some kind of terrorist weapon, was stunned for a moment when he saw Bai Wei come out. After reacting, he immediately rushed towards Bai Wei excitedly. Seeing this, Bai Wei calmly jumped and dodged Bulma, stepping on the other person's head and landing on Xixing's shoulder. Master. Bai Wei licked Xixing's face and spoke gently. Is such a cute little fox a weapon? Bulma got up from the ground and curiously looked at the white tail on Xixing's shoulder, asking. The white tail of this form mainly helps me collect natural energy, which I will see in combat form later. Xixing bought a question without directly answering. Xixing, could you make one for me? Bulma looked at Bai Wei, and the more she looked, the more she liked it. Then she said to Xixing. Well. If you just want a pet, why not just buy one? Xixing hesitated for a moment and said, I don't want to do it, after all, designing a super mechanical battle beast is not an easy task. Cut if you don't want to, forget it, go back to sleep. Burma was not foolish, as he angrily walked towards the main control room after hearing the meaning behind Xixing's words. Seeing Burma's attitude towards Xixing, Bai Wei immediately showed a gritted expression and was about to pounce, but was held down by Xixing. Be good, Burma is not an enemy. Xixing touched Bai Wei's head and said. Gu. Bai Wei nodded and reluctantly placed a nest on Xixing's shoulder. Don't sleep yet, let's go out and test it. After Xixing finished speaking, he left the underground laboratory with his white tail and also brought a few things. Super Mechanical Combat Assistant. The volume has increased by 3 times, the performance has been comprehensively improved, and many new features have been added, some of which can be used during testing. Arriving at a forest far from Shidu, there is a plain near the forest, and a small river runs straight through the entire plain, creating an excellent environment. Xixing landed on the plain and nodded in satisfaction as he looked at the surrounding environment. The environment here is good, with abundant natural energy. Let's start absorbing natural energy with the white tail. It's the master. Bai Wei nodded and then jumped off Xixing's shoulder and fell to the ground. After the white tail fell to the ground, the plush tail slightly stood up, and the devices inside the body immediately activated the natural energy around it and began to converge towards the white tail. Xixing waved and a super weapon combat assistant immediately flew over, projecting a data panel in front of Xixing. In addition to displaying the data of the white tail, there are 2 constantly fluctuating lines on the data panel. One is the natural energy wavelength calculated by Hikari, and the other is the wavelength of the natural energy that is gathering here. Only when the 2 match each other can the device installed by Hikari inside the white tail perfectly absorb natural energy. Time passes by minute by second, and the 2 wavelengths are almost the same. This proves that the calculation of the star is correct and it is time to move on to the next step. White tail transforms energy. It's the master. Transforming energy is the direct conversion of natural energy into energy that can enter the immortal state. When using the 3 transformations of human immortal transformation, Xixing first absorbs and then spreads the energy to the whole body, and the human body undergoes a special transformation to make Xixing enter the immortal state. If the white tail conversion is successful, then there will be no problem with his designer's conversion device. Is there only a 35% conversion rate? Xixing looked at the 35% data panel projected by the super weapon battle assistant and was somewhat dissatisfied. Such a low conversion rate would waste a lot of natural energy, and in addition, the energy storage of the super weapon core, which was urgently produced by the white tail, was not too high. But after all, it's the first time it's been made, and it's normal to have defects. Then, Xixing experimented with other functions and most of them were fine, leaving only white tail, enter battle mode. It's the master, battle mode is activated. After Bai Wei finished speaking, complex white energy lines appeared in his snow-white hair, followed by a burst of white gas covering his body. When the white gas dissipated, the white tail had transformed from a little fox into a humanoid combat mode. Exquisite melon seed face, with a mechanical body that is characterized by the concavity in length of a sexy woman, and full of mechanical texture. The ears and tail are displayed in the form of white energy bodies. Fairy fox, white tail, battle mode. Not bad, it's truly my design. Xixing looked up and down, his delicate and slender body with a white tail, and touched his slightly hot nose, feeling very satisfied in his heart. Next, let's take a look at our strength. As Xixing spoke, he immediately transformed into Super Saiyan 4, and a golden aura burst out from him. Now that Xixing has some control over Qi, it has not affected the surrounding environment. Bai Wei, let's go to the sky and test your strength. After Xixing finished speaking, he took a step up to the sky. It's the master. A smile appeared on the white-tailed melon seed's face, extremely seductive, and immediately followed Xixing up into the sky. Feel free to come and use all the weapons I have installed for you. About flying to a height of several thousand meters, Xixing waved confidently to Bai Wei with a confident expression on his face. The current normal combat power of Xixing is 57, with an increase of about 200,000 yuan after Super Saiyan 4. Is it really possible? Master. Bai Wei hesitated a bit, and in her program, she couldn't treat Xixing as her master like this. Sure, come on. With a hesitant expression and a coquettish charm, Xixing instinctively turned his head and thought to himself. Next time, we absolutely can't design it so perfectly. Okay. Okay. Seeing that Xing agreed again, Bai Wei hesitated a bit and finally nodded. Come on. Seeing Bai Wei nodding, Xing immediately elevated his aura to the extreme, and the power of super weapons should not be underestimated. Jio. The terrifying energy beam flashed through the air, and Xing was hit head-on by the energy beam. The originally explosive aura was now incredibly weak, and he was gasping for breath. If it weren't for the high defense of Super Saiyan 4, he would probably have been seriously injured. Master, do you still want to continue? Bai Wei spoke up to inquire, and at this moment, the opponent's outstretched right hand had transformed into a pair of SCI-filled cannons, with white smoke still emitting from the muzzle. No, no, no. Let's try again when we have the chance in the future. Xing quickly shook his head and refused. If I remember correctly, it seemed like a super ion cannon, a weaker weapon installed on the white tail without showing any strength in the experiment. Xing prepared to go back, but saw that the device worn on his body had been leaked due to most of his clothes being damaged. By the way, I haven't tried this yet. But it seems to be broken. Give it a chance to try again. Bai Wei, I'm going back. It's the master. Xing and Bai Wei didn't stay much and left the area directly to fly to Shidu Capsule Company. What kind of person are you, Xing, with this power? A figure appeared in the clouds, named Bic. He sensed the breath of the transformed star, and because the difference from the previous appearance of the star was too large, he came to check who the owner of the breath was. At the same time, a micrometer person also transmitted the situation here to one person. Interesting, a tall figure looked at the image transmitted by the micro-robot on the computer, revealing a sinister smile. Then, with a casual operation, the screen belonging to Xing will be deleted, and instructions will be given to the micro-robot to no longer monitor Xing. What are you doing? A hunched figure walked out from behind and asked coldly. It's nothing, just observe those enemies of yours. Faced with the cold inquiries from the people behind, the tall figure of the owner calmly answered. Although it was well concealed, the owner of the hunched figure still noticed something was wrong. I have already completed the transformation, and this force. Don't you plan to transform it into a human-like creature? Hee, I won't be as foolish as you. Since that's the case. What do you want to do? Since we have different ideas, there's no need for you to stay and become my experimental subject. Chapter 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the blink of an eye, another half-month had passed. A few fairy beans had matured on the side of the Kalen Immortal, and Yakalob immediately sent them to Sun Wukong, who was still hospitalized. Great, finally recovered. The nurse who had just walked into the hospital and was preparing to change Sun Wukong's dressing, looked bewildered when she saw Sun Wukong, who had recovered, jump off the bed with a burst of air shattering bandages and plaster. Since you have recovered, I will go back. The tool man saw that Sun Wukong had recovered from his injuries and left all the fairy beans behind, so he left the hospital and drove back to Kalinta. I'm going to see how Xing is preparing. I need to have Chi deliver her clothes first. Where is that phone number? Sun Wukong looked at the little nurse who was still standing still and asked. Oh, in. Whoosh. A spacecraft in the universe crashed rapidly towards Earth, instantly breaking through the atmosphere and falling into the forest near the white tail of the Hikari test half a month ago. What fell down? Xing and the protagonist group, who were having a picnic on the plain near the forest, were immediately startled and looked in the direction of the forest together. Picnic. Forest. Feels a bit familiar. Xing looked at the black smoke rising from the forest and took a bite of the hamburger in his hand, as if he remembered something for a moment. Because the production speed of the spacecraft exceeded the estimate, it only takes 3 days for maintenance to set off to Namek, and maintenance is entirely done by computer-controlled robots. Therefore, Burma, who had nothing to do, reported this picnic and planned to take this opportunity to discuss the specific plan after going to Namek. Ding. Post a mission to kill Darius. Just as Xing was trying to recall, the system that had not moved for a long time suddenly sounded and issued a task to Xing. Puff. Darius. Xing, who had just taken a sip of juice, heard the name Darius and was so scared that he sprayed out the juice he had just drunk. It's not that Darius is so powerful, it's just that the sudden appearance of an enemy is quite unexpected. After all, it doesn't match the plot that I know. The key is that all the super weapons made are being maintained, and White Tail is still waiting in the instrument due to the upgrade of Hikari. That is to say, if you want to deal with Fu Dales, you can only rely on Xing himself. Thinking of his 57 combat power, Xing couldn't help but feel a bit flustered. It's on fire. Sun Wufan saw that the forest was gradually starting to catch fire, and many animals were displaced. The kind-hearted Sun Wufan immediately flew towards the forest, intending to extinguish the fire. Wufan, wait for me. Kling immediately followed suit upon seeing the situation. I'll go too. Xing thought for a moment and followed along. At this point, Xing had already recalled all the plot about Darius, and there should be a flying machine in the forest to survey whether the earth could plant divine trees. Hey! You all went, what should I do? Because the main purpose was to discuss the plan for Namek, only those who planned to go to Namek came, and after the three of Xing left, only Burma remained. Looking at the three of them flying far away, Bulma couldn't help but think of her boyfriend Yamcha, and her determination to go to Namek Star was firm in her heart, thinking that she must personally revive Yamcha. Have the courage to put out the big fire. As he watched the raging fire grow stronger and stronger, the clever Wufan immediately came up with a solution, and the three of them burst into anger at the same time. Xing's burst of breath was almost close to his body, while Klin's breath completely separated from his body and was on par with Sun Wufan beside him. The three of them simultaneously used their breath to trigger a hurricane and extinguish the fire. However, the fire spread rapidly, and the originally dense forest had now turned into a scorched land. The scorched dead trees and animal corpses made this place appear lifeless. The animals are so pitiful. If the Dragon Ball can be used now, it can be restored here immediately. There's still someone alive there. Xing pointed to several collapsed withered trees, under which a purple velociraptor was pressed. The three of them immediately flew over to rescue the velociraptor. It seems like it's really the Darius plot. After rescuing it, Xing also recognized that the velociraptor was the one that appeared in the theatrical version, and his doubts were completely dispelled. It seems that the butterfly effect generated by the world I have traveled through is a bit chaotic and outrageous. I'll go see what the falling thing is. Xing observed the surroundings and determined the source of the fire. After talking to the two people beside him, he quickly flew over. Not long after flying, Xing saw a strange spider-like machine spinning the camera on his main body to survey the situation of the Earth. As soon as Xing approached, he was quickly captured by the camera. First destroy this thing, maybe we can delay some time. During his speech, Xing raised his hand and fired an air bomb, directly destroying the machine. He planned to go back soon and temporarily suspend maintenance. At least he needed to get a super weapon and combat assistance device to feel some security in his heart. Kid, how brave you are to destroy our surveyor. Suddenly, a voice with a hint of anger came from behind, frightening Xing and immediately turning around. A tall, muscular man with red skin and a cross-shaped scar on his face appeared behind him at some point. Xing knows this person and is one of Darius's subordinates, but he doesn't remember his specific name. However, he is just a subordinate, and Xing is not panicked at all. He secretly collects natural energy and prepares to enter a human immortal form to face the enemy. It's really weak with a combat power of only 57. Hurry up and deal with you so that you can plant the divine spirit tree. Armando finished speaking and rushed straight towards Xixing, raising his fist to hit Xixing's handsome face. Just as his fist was about to fall, a white-eye shadow suddenly appeared on the corner of his eye, and a symbol line appeared on his eyebrow. Transform into a human immortal form. After transforming, Xixing immediately tilted his head and dodged Armando's fist, then gathered his long sword in his hand and slashed it towards Armando's neck. Drink. Armando felt the crisis and let out a low shout, unleashing a powerful aura that forced Hikari back. Die for me. Forcing Xixing to retreat, Armando immediately threw several gas bombs and unleashed the prince's strategy. Windward Talisman. Xixing grabbed a talisman and quickly attached it to his body, accompanied by the airflow around him. With increased speed, Xixing easily dodged all the air bullets and approached Armando, lifting his sword and swinging it. Shwa. Chang. The sword light fell and a metallic collision sound sounded, and Armando actually blocked the chi sword that Xixing had been extremely sharp since using it with his arms. Is that all you have? It's too weak. Armando exerted force on both arms and bounced open the sword in Xixing's hand, taking advantage of Xixing's unstable figure to punch him in the abdomen. Cough! This punch directly flew Xixing up to 100 meters away, coughing up a mouthful of blood, indicating that he was injured quite a bit. Earthlings are really weak. Armando shook his hand and finished speaking, ignoring the flying star. Armando took out a seed from his body, and with just one finger, he blasted a large pit on the ground and planted the seed in his hand. A few seconds after the seeds were planted, the ground suddenly began to tremble, followed by countless thick roots breaking through the soil and emerging. Soon after, it grew into a towering tree soaring into the sky. What is that? Nearby Clin and Sun Wufan were at a loss when they saw the sudden appearance of the towering tree, while the nearby velociraptor kept roaring angrily towards the tree. Clin, Wufan. A voice came from a distance, and Clin and Sun Wufan happily turned their heads to look. It was Sun Wukong, whom they had been longing for, who arrived here. Wukong, your injury is healed. Yakalob has brought me fairy beans. Let's stop chatting and go destroy that divine spirit tree first. Divine spirit tree. What is that? Faced with the doubts of Clin and Sun Wufan, Sun Wukong conveyed all the information about the divine spirit tree that the World King had told him to both of them. After listening, the two of them turned pale. Sun Wufan spoke anxiously, Dad, let's hurry and destroy that tree. Whoosh! 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 The three of them nodded to each other, while their explosive energy flew towards the direction of the divine spirit tree. Boom! 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 The three of them had just flown into the sky when suddenly three powerful air bombs were fired. Only Sun Wukong forcefully took down the air bombs, and Sun Wufan and Clin were directly shot down to the ground. Wufan, Clin, are you all okay? Sun Wukong waved his hand to dispel the smoke and dust generated by the explosion and anxiously shouted towards the ground. Dad, I'm fine. Me too. Sun Wufan and Clin struggled to get up from the ground and spoke in response to Wukong. If you want to interfere with the growth of the divine spirit tree, have you figured out how to die? Sun Wukong saw that his son and friend were fine, so he looked in the direction of the previous air ejection, where four figures flew in mid-air. These people are the other subordinates of Darius. The Cacao, Diaz, and Lacasse brothers. Who are you and why are you taking action against the earth? Sun Wukong angrily questioned the four people. Kakarot, you are truly a shame to the saints, who cares about such a weak planet. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded behind Xixing. Sun Wukong turned around in surprise and couldn't help but be stunned when he saw the person behind him. Tu Wukong. Clin on the ground was also shocked to see the appearance of the person behind Sun Wukong. No. That person is not Dad. Sun Wufan retorted, sensing that the person's breath was completely different from Sun Wukong's. And this person is none other than Darius. I'm not Carrot, I'm Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong, it doesn't matter. Join my army. This way, you can live freely in the universe and obtain countless treasures. It's impossible, I won't join you. Hurry up and leave the earth. And take the tree you planted with you. Sun Wukong interrupted Darius directly and then unleashed his own aura in an attempt to intimidate the Darius and his companions. Drop. 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 As Sun Wukong began to explode, the numbers on the battle detectors on the three of Darius immediately began to jump. 1,000, 3,000. 15,000, 20,000. 30,000, until it reached over 30,000, it stopped. This. How could this be possible? Darius' subordinates were shocked by the battle erupted by Sun Wukong, and even Darius's face showed a hint of panic. Humph. Give it to me. Darius snorted coldly and immediately issued an order to his subordinates. Go up. Upon hearing the order, the four of them rushed towards Sun Wukong without hesitation. Although Sun Wukong's strength had reached over 30,000, their strength was also at the level of over 20,000. For against one, they are very confident that they can take down Sun Wukong. Cut. Faced with the attack of the four Sun Wukong was not afraid. He rushed forward and punched Days away first, then took the opportunity to sneak attack from both sides with Lacaille's attack, and then threw the two towards the final Cacao. In the first round, they barely managed to gain the upper hand, but the four of them quickly rushed forward to fight against Sun Wukong again. Although Sun Wukong's combat power is stronger than these four people, he cannot solve the siege of the four people for a while. Chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Surprisingly growing so fast, it seems that the nutritional quality of this planet is very high. Amando stood on a thick branch of the divine spirit tree, surprised to see the rapidly growing tree, and then sensed that his accomplice was about to pass in battle when a golden light burst out in the distance. Drop. 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 Who is it? The combat power detector worn by Amando was frantically warning, and the numbers on it were jumping wildly, ultimately leading to a direct explosion beyond the limit. In the distant golden light, there was a figure, which was Xixing, who had just been punched away. At this time, Xixing had transformed into Almondo, a Super Saiyan with a combat power of over 200,000 and a combat power of over 20,000. Whoo! Whoosh! Without much ado, Xixing exploded and flew towards Amando at the fastest speed. Before Amando could react, he arrived in front of him. I'll give you this punch back. Bang! Without any reserve, Xixing punched Amando's abdomen with a terrifying force that instantly sent him flying into the distance. What kind of thing? Taking advantage of their efforts to hold on to Sun Wukong, Darius took the opportunity to leave and go to pick the almost ripe fruit of the divine spirit tree. However, Amando, who was knocked away, happened to fly towards him and startled him. He raised his hand and released a wave of Qigong, which turned Amando into a scum. You're really ruthless, Darius. Who is it? Darius looked in the direction of Amando's flight, with an indescribable panic on his face. The person who came was Hikari in the Super 4 state. Good opportunity. Jiwang Fist. On the other side, the three subordinates who were fighting against Sun Wukong were also startled by the sudden appearance of a powerful aura. Sun Wukong immediately captured the moment when the four of them were distracted, and the sudden burst of crimson aura doubled the intensity of the aura. How could it be? The four of them were startled by the sudden outbreak of Sun Wukong, but unfortunately it was too late to react. The outbreak of Sun Wukong was instantly resolved and fell to the ground one by one. Dad, that's amazing. Wukong, that's great. Sun Wufan and Klin, who were watching the battle on the ground, immediately cheered when they saw Sun Wukong's victory and flew towards Sun Wukong's side. Let's go to Xixing's side quickly and destroy this tree. Sun Wukong lifted his Jiwang fist and smiled at the two of them, but his face became serious again when he saw the rapidly drying ground. The three of them had no further ado and immediately flew to the location of the battle between Xixing and Darius. Xixing's combat power of over 200,000 is simply overwhelming Darius, who has less than 30,000 combat power. He only needs to hit Xixing with one punch to complete the mission. Unfortunately, Darius had far more combat experience than Xixing, constantly using various methods and evading distances to prevent Xixing from even touching his clothes. There's no other choice but to use Qigong waves. Unable to solve Darius for a long time, it was observed that Darius was cleverly distancing himself and approaching the crown of the spirit tree, where the fruit of the divine spirit tree had already ripened. Once it was eaten, the opponent's combat power would explode and even surpass himself. Seeing this situation, Xixing can only make a turtle-style Qigong wave start gesture to gather energy. After this, Xixing will no longer be able to maintain the transformation of Super Saiyan 4. This is currently the biggest flaw of Xixing. The weak normal state leads to a pitiful lack of qi in his body. If it weren't for the energy-saving effect of Super Saiyan 4, he wouldn't even be able to maintain it for long. Therefore, when using Super Saiyan 4, he usually only uses his fist, but in special circumstances, he can only gamble. Turtle Pie Qigong Wave. The blue energy bloomed between the hands, accompanied by the last word shouting, and the hands exerted their strength to push out the gathered energy, transforming into a strong blue Qigong wave that attacked Darius. No. The speed of this blow was extremely fast, and Darius couldn't avoid it at all. He could only extend his hand to resist, but when he saw the Qigong wave instantly engulfing his hands, Darius could only weakly roar. After the Qigong wave completely engulfed its figure, it flew straight towards the crown of the spirit tree with its body, and finally disappeared without a trace in the astonishing explosion. After releasing this moment, the transformation of hope was instantly lifted, and the energy in the body was almost exhausted, falling directly onto the huge tree branch standing on it. Xixing. Not long after lying down, Sun Wukong and his companions flew over and couldn't help but shout out anxiously when they saw Xixing lying on a branch. "I'm fine, I just ran out of energy." Seeing the worried expressions on the faces of the three of them, Xixing couldn't help but feel a warmth in his heart. He weakly revealed his lover. "Xixing, eat this quickly." Sun Wukong immediately took out the fairy beans and gave them to Xixing to take. Previously, Yakuluabai had sent a total of 6, but he used 1. Now, he is giving Xixing another one and there are still 4 left. The feeling of exhaustion is really uncomfortable. Xixing ate the fairy beans and immediately regained his strength. A carp stood up straight. "Dad, let's quickly destroy the hard tree with brother Xixing." Sun Wufan spoke up. Let's go together." "Wait, the divine spirit tree is very hard. Even if we climb together, we can't destroy it. We need to use special methods." Xixing stopped Sun Wukong, who was preparing to leave, and spoke out what he knew. "What special method?" Sun Wukong opened his mouth to inquire. Let me think. The method to destroy the divine spirit tree can actually be described now, which is to collect the elemental energy of the divine spirit tree using the Yuanqi bullet to completely destroy it. However, Xixing feels that this divine spirit tree has great value in utilization. The fruit of the spiritual tree that can enhance strength is one of them, and its speed of extracting energy. It is really worth researching. If you want to stay, let him extract the energy from the earth like this again. The earth will definitely not be able to hold on. Let's see if we can extract anything useful from the system. Xixing may not be able to come up with a perfect solution for a while, so he can only rely on the system for hope. But when I opened the system and looked at the number of lottery draws at the bottom of the personal panel, I was immediately stunned. Host. Xixing gender. Male age. 22 race. Earthling's combat power. 60 evaluation. Not bad, our strength is steadily improving. Lottery frequency. 0 times, wait, no. Seeing that the system did not reward him with the number of draws, Shi Xing's face changed and he immediately looked at the crown of the divine spirit tree. But just now, a very strong aura suddenly erupted from the tree crown, and the location was exactly where Shi Xing's turtle-style Qigong wave finally exploded. This is that guy's anger, why suddenly became stronger than just now. Kling said in a panic. Be careful. Sun Wukong looked seriously at the location where his breath erupted, and his face suddenly changed and he immediately spoke up to remind him. Whoosh! 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 At the location where the breath erupted, raindrops of air bombs fell, targeting the branches where the 4 people of Shi Xing were located. The power of these air bombs was not to be underestimated, and their speed was also very fast. Almost as soon as Sun Wukong's voice fell, countless air bombs covered them. Boom! 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 Accompanied by loud noises, the huge branches were blasted into pieces, creating a large expanse of smoke and dust. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the smoke and dust, 2 rays of light, one golden and one red, flew out. One was Sun Wukong, who used the World King Fist with Klin, and the other was Shi Xing, who transformed into Super Saiyan 4 again with Sun Wufan. You scared me to death. Thank you, brother Shi Xing. Klin and Sun Wufan, as protected individuals, both breathed a sigh of relief when they realized it. No. Just as Shi Xing was about to respond, a sudden sense of crisis struck from behind. Before he could turn around, a strong force immediately knocked Shi Xing away from behind. However, Sun Wufan was left behind and was immediately grabbed by Shi Xing, who was actually Darius. At this moment, Darius had a sinister smile on his face, and after eating the divine spirit fruit, his combat power had surpassed that of Hikari in the Super Saiyan 4 form. Wufan. Seeing his son being caught by Darius, Sun Wukong directly used the highest number of Realm King Fists he could currently use. 10 times Realm King Fists. Klin tacitly controlled his body to fly in mid-air, allowing Sun Wukong to let go of his full strength and confront Darius. Faced with Sun Wukong, who was in a state of 10 times the World King's Fist, Darius remained calm and calmly avoided several punches from Sun Wukong's close approach. Seizing the opportunity, he severely injured Sun Wukong's abdomen with his knee, followed closely by kicking him to the ground. Wukong! Dad! Klin exclaimed in surprise and immediately dived down to catch Sun Wukong, but Sun Wufan could only struggle desperately in Darius's hands. Scratch! Just as Klin was about to approach the falling Sun Wukong, Darius flashed between the two and kicked Klin away, instantly condensing a huge gas bullet that shot him down to the ground with Sun Wukong at a faster speed. Boom! The air bomb landed with Sun Wukong, and the terrifying explosion caused a small mushroom cloud to rise on the ground. The smoke dissipated, revealing Sun Wukong, who had fallen heavily injured in the rubble. Dad! Sun Wufan exclaimed anxiously upon seeing the situation. Upon hearing Sun Wufan's call, Sun Wukong moved his fingers and struggled to get up from the ground. Kakarot, I'll give you another chance to join my legion. I can spare you and your son. Darius smiled and reached out his hand, opening his mouth to pull it closer. I won't join you. Sun Wukong responded, it seems like he's struggling to speak now. Humph. Then go to hell and let your son do it himself. Darius smiled with a wicked smile, and as he spoke, a white light appeared in his hand, throwing a cloud of white energy into the air. The white energy suddenly expands in the air, emitting a bright white light like a bright moon. Don't. Upon seeing this scene, Sun Wukong immediately realized what the other party was going to do and wanted to stop him. However, as soon as he moved his body, he fell to the ground due to his injuries. Darius did not care about Sun Wukong on the ground. He picked up the Sun Wufan in his hand and asked him to block the white light for himself, allowing Sun Wufan to look directly at the light ball in the air. Ah! Under the influence of white light, Sun Wufan's eyes instantly turned red, and hair began to grow on his body surface. His body also began to rapidly expand and transform into a giant ape. Magic Guan Guan Kill Cannon. A red energy beam wrapped around golden energy and lightning suddenly shot out, piercing straight through the white energy in the air and completely dispersing it. Without the white light released by the white energy cluster, Sun Wufan's giant ape transformation immediately stopped and quickly returned to its original form. Chapter 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Who is it? How dare you ruin my good deed? Darius looked towards the direction of the energy beam and angrily asked. Wufan is in danger, and naturally the one who takes action is Wufan's father, Bike. Cut. Let go of Wufan. Seeing Darius looking towards him, Bik had planned to avoid him first, but when he saw Sun Wufan, who was already unconscious at the moment, he forcefully spoke up and took off his robe. Bik, be careful, this guy is very strong. Sun Wukong spoke up and reminded. Is being careful useful? Darius sneered and disappeared into place, then appeared in front of Bik and punched him. Bang! With a muffled sound, Bik barely caught Darius' first punch, but all the subsequent attacks fell on Bik, almost in the blink of an eye. He was already covered in injuries. Go to hell. Seeing that Bike was so weak, Darius had no interest in playing anymore. He lifted up the concentrated energy and directly condensed a huge energy ball, smashing it down. The terrifying energy instantly erupted and completely engulfed Bike's figure. Uncle Bik. Sun Wufan, who had just come to his senses, saw this scene. His father's tragic situation made Sun Wufan's emotions extremely angry, and a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from him, breaking free from the constraints of Darius. You bastard! Sun Wufan's explosive aura grew stronger and stronger, as he roared towards Darius and raised his hands above his head, beginning to gather all his energy. Magic Flash. Wave your hands and release the gathered energy in the form of Qigong waves, attacking Darius. Perhaps due to the previous ape-like transformation and angry emotions, Sun Wufan's blow reached an unprecedented height, and even Darius felt threatened. Although Darius felt threatened, his power was still not enough to defeat him. Drink. Darius let out a furious shout and extended his hands to start accumulating energy, condensing a terrifying circular energy. As he pushed his hands forward, the circular energy immediately flew out. Boom! The two collided, producing a terrifying explosion, and ultimately exhausted their strength to resolve each other. I did my best. Seeing his attack resolved, Sun Wufan closed his eyes in disappointment and let his body fall to the ground. Wufan. Sun Wukong, who had recovered a bit, arrived directly below Sun Wufan in time and reached out a hand to grab it and embrace it in his arms. The son of a lower-level warrior, surprisingly able to unleash such power, Carrot, you really gave me a lot of surprises. Darius said in mid-air. But if you don't want to join, you must die. After Darius finished speaking, he began to gather his strength again, intending to directly kill Sun Wukong and Sun Wufan together this time. Darius, try this. Sun Wukong suddenly raised his hand, and a blue energy bullet popped out of his palm as white light flowed through it. It was the ultimate move. Yuanqi bullet, and Sun Wukong took advantage of Bike's entanglement and Sun Wufan's outburst just now to collect Yuanqi. What is that? Darius was surprised and did not expect that Sun Wukong still retained such power. Go ahead, Yuanqi bullet. Sun Wukong grabbed the evil aura of Darius and threw out the elemental energy bomb with all his might, then nervously watched as it flew out. When collecting elemental energy just now, he found that the Earth's elemental energy was already very thin, resulting in the limited power of this elemental energy bomb. However, Sun Wukong could only rely on this elemental energy bomb for hope. Unfortunately, Things didn't go as planned. Boom. Accompanied by an explosion, the elemental energy bomb was resolved by a single blow of Qigong wave released by Darius with all his might. Sun Wukong fell to the ground and protected Sun Wufan with his body to prevent the aftermath of the explosion from harming Sun Wufan. Haha. Carrot, there's no other trick left. Darius laughed and looked at Sun Wukong lying on the ground, saying. This time it's really. Sun Wukong raised his head to look at Darius, and a sense of powerlessness suddenly rose from his heart. This aura is. Just as Sun Wukong was preparing to face reality, he suddenly felt a surge of energy gathering at a high place, but Darius didn't seem to notice that he was still there, laughing proudly. Carrot, go to hell. Darius, who did not perceive that aura, once again began to gather strength and prepare to deal with Sun Wukong and Sun Wufan. Haha. It seems there is still hope. After confirming the owner of the anger, Sun Wukong couldn't help but smile on his face. What are you laughing at? Seeing Sun Wukong smile, Darius asked coldly. What he wanted to see was that Sun Wukong died in pain, not with a playful smile like he does now. Suddenly, 7 dazzling starlights lit up on the crown of the divine spirit tree in the high altitude. At this moment, Darius felt the abnormality in the height and immediately exploded and flew to the top of the tree crown at the fastest speed. What is this? Something. Darius looked down at the tree crown below, his face filled with astonishment, and a chill spread throughout his body. Cold sweat instantly soaked his back. I saw a huge array suspended above the tree crown, and visible energy flowed into the center of the array like a flood, making the 7 twinkling stars on the array even more dazzling. Darius, are you ready to suffer death? There is a human figure sitting in the center of the formation, not someone else but Xixing. With the power of the divine spirit tree, Xixing has once again entered the form of a human immortal. It's you. I was planning to solve Carrot first before torturing you properly. It seems like I was wrong, and your threat is the greatest. Darius gritted his teeth and said. Unfortunately, I found out too late. After Xixing finished speaking, he quickly formed a magic seal in his hand, and the energy collected by the 7-star gathering spirit formation flowed directly into his body. The divine spirit tree under the magic array withers rapidly at a visible speed to the naked eye. Second transformation. Immortal form. The white light bloomed on the body of Star Shi, and when the white light dissipated, the image of Star Shi changed again. Her hair grew longer and turned from black to white, and she was dressed in an energy-embodied immortal robe. The mysterious rune on her eyebrows flickered behind the robe, and her pupils became incredibly clear, as if there were no distractions present. Second transformation. Immortal form. You bastard. Seeing the withered spirit tree, Darius blushed with anger. As he spoke, he took out a fruit from the spirit tree from somewhere and bit into his body, causing his muscles to expand a bit. With a strong force, he crushed the remaining fruit and the juice splattered everywhere. Drink. Raise your head high with both hands, and instantly condense terrifying energy into a huge energy bomb. 7-star sword. Xixing waved his hand, and the 7-star lights in the formation beneath him suddenly broke away. A Big Dipper formation was placed above Xixing's head, and then the starlight spread and directly transformed into a starlight giant sword. Go to hell with me. Slash. Darius roared and threw the gathered energy bomb toward Xixing. Xixing's fingers moved slightly, and the huge 7-star sword on top of his head immediately struck Darius and met the thrown energy bomb. Shwa. The sword light overflowed everywhere, and the giant 7-star sword sliced open energy like cutting tofu. The overflowing sword energy directly dissipated the cut energy, and finally the giant 7-star sword struck Darius. No. In the unwilling roar, Darius was completely submerged in the sword light and completely eliminated. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the task. Reward. 3 lucky draw opportunities. Upon hearing the system prompt, Xixing finally let go of his heart, but it's not yet time for the lottery. Scatter. With a wave of Xixing's hand, the giant 7-star sword immediately transformed into countless starlight scattered, like spring rain, on the nearby dry ground, instantly restoring its original vitality. After dealing with the 7-star sword, Xixing flew towards high altitude and passed through the atmosphere, reaching the stratosphere on the planet's surface. Looking at the Earth here is like looking at a super large globe, but now the Earth has changed from mostly blue to a lifeless earthy brown. Xixing raised his hand, and the natural energy inside his body gushed out, transforming into countless dots of light that scattered on Earth. With the return of the planet to normalcy, Earth has once again become that beautiful blue planet. We need to hurry back. Normally, Xixing could not stay in such a harsh environment as the stratosphere for long, and immediately transformed into Super Saiyan 4 and flew back to Earth. After Xixing returned, he first came to Sun Wukong to pick up the remaining 4 immortal beans so that he could treat the wounded. Xixing, did you do those things just now? After recovery, Sun Wukong asked Xixing. It's me. Xixing nodded while giving Sun Wufan some fairy beans. I can even do that kind of thing, I really want to spar with you. Well, let's talk about it when we have time. Xixing is not a fight maniac. After changing the topic, he immediately went to search for the remaining 2 people. In the end, he found the seriously injured Clin and Bic's body in the corner. Ah, Uncle Bic. The death of his biological father dealt a huge blow to Sun Wufan, who threw himself on Bike's body and burst into tears. It's okay, Wufan. We can use Namike's Dragon Ball to resurrect Bike. Clin patted Wufan's shoulder and comforted her. Uncle Bic, you wait, I will definitely resurrect you. Sun Wufan wiped away his tears and spoke firmly. Good job, Wufan. Watching his son's reaction, Sun Wufan couldn't help but praise him. Brother Xixing, when are we leaving? Sun Wufan looked at Xixing and asked. 2 days later, the capsule company will gather. Xixing thought for a moment and answered. How dare you guys leave me there alone? Suddenly, a voice full of resentment came from behind. Upon hearing this voice, the 4 of them changed their faces and then turned around to see Burma walking angrily. At this moment, Burma looked very disheveled, her hair was messy, and her clothes were broken in multiple places, revealing her fair skin, which was clearly a lot of suffering. Well, Burma, let's save Bic's body first. Clin tried to change the topic, but in the end, he was chased and beaten by Burma, and a few of them separated and went back to their respective homes. Xixing temporarily lives in the capsule company and can only go back with Bulma. Along the way, there is no escape from torture. This is the first time Xixing has the idea of finding his own place to establish a laboratory. Returning to the basement of the capsule company, Xixing chose to live here directly due to the addition of an upgrade to the White Tail system. As soon as Xixing sat down, he called out the system panel. He must be prepared for the unknown journey to Namike Star. Who knows what will happen in the end due to the chaos on his side. Chapter 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Host. Xixing Gender. Male Age. 22 Race. Earthlings Combat Power. 125 Comment. First entered the heavenly immortal state, no greed power and gave up the earth, not bad, not bad. Lottery frequency. 3 times, is it in a celestial state? Xixing took a look at the system review first, and couldn't help but recall the feeling when he entered the heavenly immortal state. When entering the celestial realm, I do not know why there was a thought of completely absorbing the power of the earth, but I almost instinctively abandoned this idea and only used the power of the earth to solve Darius before returning the power to the earth. If you choose the former, it feels like you will become a demon. In that case, to enter a celestial state, one must absorb the natural energy of the entire planet. This time, there is a powerful absorber called the Divine Spirit Tree. It may not be easy to quickly absorb the natural energy of the entire planet on its own. Forget it, there will always be a way in the future. Let's start with a lottery. After Xixing finished speaking, he issued instructions to the system. Ding! The lottery is starting. A colorful turntable appeared out of thin air in front of me. In the lottery. The turntable is starting to rotate at high speed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Super Secret Scripts. Chinkuan Great Movement, Super Technology. Universal Transformation Formula, Super Rewards. Super 10 Consecutive Draws. Super 10 consecutive draws, you can still do this. Seeing the last reward, I couldn't help but be stunned. However, in some games, there are indeed rewards such as a few more draws or lottery tickets, but the super lottery system never disappoints him with each reward, and he is excited to think about drawing 10 times at a time. Yes, no, perform super 10 consecutive draws. Yes. Excited hearts, trembling hands, and the colorful turntable reappeared as fingers pressed down. Ding! The Super 10 consecutive lucky draws are starting. In the lottery. The large turntable began to rotate at high speed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Super Secret Scripts. Infinite Body, Super Secret Scripts. Super Recovery Technique, Super Power of Mind, Super Power Flame, Super Technology. Overload Formula, Super Technology. Super Plant Cultivation, Super Technology. Super Nuclear Gathering, Super Technology. Gluttony Absorber, the talent of a super martial artist, a set of 7 Dragon Balls. The reward has been distributed. Please check and receive it yourself. There were too many rewards, and Xixing forgot what was ahead after listening to it. He sat and waited for the reward to be transmitted directly halfway through. However, the last reward left Xixing stunned for a moment. However, just to confirm, a large amount of information flooded into the brain, and Xixing could only helplessly fall asleep. After sleeping for 2 days, Burma, who was so scared that he didn't wake up, thought he was dead and immediately sent him to the hospital for examination. I slept really well this night. After waking up, Xixing stretched his body stiffly and slept for the past 2 days, but the information that had been transmitted from his digestive system did not sleep well. Strange. Is this a hospital? Having a clear view of the room one is in, one can immediately recognize that it has a layout similar to the ward one lived in a month ago, which means one is in the hospital. How many days have I slept? After waking up a bit, Xixing immediately remembered his journey to Namek and looked at the clock beside him as he spoke. Wow! It's been 2 days already, so we're leaving today. Xixing immediately jumped out of bed, opened the window, and jumped from the hospital on the 7th floor. Along the way, an explosion of gas quickly flew to the capsule company. Damn it, are you still late? After arriving at the capsule company, Xixing quickly entered the underground laboratory and unfortunately, there was no trace of the spacecraft at the place where it was parked. Xixing, when did you wake up? Bulma happened to pass by and was surprised to see Xixing, so she quickly walked over. Ha! Bulma, why didn't you go with me? Seeing Bulma, Xixing was also taken aback. It was planned that the other party would also go together. Has the spaceship not left yet? Something happened during the 2 days you were asleep. Bulma recounted all the events that had happened during the 2 days when Xixing was unconscious, leaving she momentarily stunned. During the month when Xixing built the spaceship, there was no idle time on Frieza's side. 1 month was enough for them to occupy several planets, and finding a few Dragon Balls was not easy, let alone the interference of the protagonist group and the villain Vegeta. However, there were still unexpected incidents, and the search for the Dragon Ball by Frieza and his team was not smooth because there was a traveler on the planet Namek. A traveler who travels through the world to become a Namek, named Daluo, with the addition of a super cultivation system. The system is in my hands, I have it in the world. The super cultivation system is a system that can provide the most perfect cultivation method according to the environment. The technology of the Namek people is backward, so Daluo can only stay on Namek and the cultivation methods provided by the system are limited. In 7 years, Daluo only cultivated to the level of combat power of 90 million. However, although the technology of the Namek people is backward, they possess an incredible artifact like the Dragon Ball, and only the Elder has the right to use the Dragon Ball. To become the Grand Elder, one needs to obtain the appointment of the former Grand Elder. In order to enhance his strength, Daluo approached the Grand Elder and, knowing that his life was not long, eventually passed on the position of Grand Elder to Daluo. And just as Daluo was excitedly preparing to use the Dragon Ball to travel to other planets, the Legion of Flysa suddenly descended. With a combat power of 90 million, there is no problem with the small soldiers fighting against Frieza. Kill one by one, a group by group. But in the end, he met Frieza, and Daluo knew the opponent's strength. He wanted to take advantage of the opponent's initial form to kill him in a flash. Unfortunately, Frieza was not foolish, and at a critical moment, he entered the final form and directly entered the state of 100% strength. In the end, Daluo was defeated, but before his death, Daluo vomited an egg and gave birth to a son named Xiao Luo. Xiao Luo inherited almost everything from Daluo except for his super cultivation system, but due to his age, his combat power is very limited. Before his death, Daluo passed on the position of Grand Elder to him and left a message for Xiao Luo to seek help from Sun Wukong on Earth. After the death of Daluo and before the birth of Xiao Luo, the dragon beads were in a petrified state. Frieza thought it was a waste of time and left the planet Namek, selling it to the Pulleys people. The Pulleys people naturally have spaceships for interstellar migration. With the help of a Pulleys person, Xiao Luo finally arrived on Earth in a spaceship and explained the situation to Sun Wukong and others. In the end, Xiao Luo made the Dragon Ball and helped Sun Wukong and his companions resurrect their deceased companions. He then used a wish to resurrect the Namek people, and the last wish locked in the position of Frieza. With positions available, Sun Wukong, Sun Wufan, Klin, Bike, and the resurrected Daluo sat on a spaceship together to hunt down Fraser. The resurrected Namek people also created a new Namek star in a remote corner of the universe using Earth's Dragon Balls. In order to reach the new Namek planet, the Namek people boarded the spaceship with Sun Wukong and the others, intending to transport the Namek people to the new Namek planet along the way. These things have happened in the past 2 days, how can we say? Is there still a need for rationality in a systematic system of walkers, even though there may be some irrationality involved? As for why Daluo and Xiao Luo are not the same soul, do you think the super cultivation system will make your master Daluo die? Of course not, this was said by a wise man with a strict wife. As for who this wise man is, these past few days have been really busy for nothing, when suddenly another passerby intervenes and kicks sideways. Am I not the protagonist? I came to the main control room of the laboratory and sat in my seat, unable to resist roast. What kind of traveler, protagonist, what are you talking about? Bulma also arrived at the main control room. Just now, she was just going for that drink, and as soon as she came in, she couldn't help but hear Shi Xing muttering where he was. It's nothing, by the way, Yamcha should have come back to life. Aren't you going on a date with him? Shi Xing didn't want his identity to be exposed and quickly found a topic. Thinking that every night when he worked overtime, he could hear Burma calling out the name of Yamu T in his dream, he casually said it. Don't mention that bastard. I thought the topic was quite good, but Nami suddenly changed her expression and looked angry. Is this? What happened? Shi Xing didn't originally want to ask, but this melon is on the tip of his tongue and he won't eat it for free. Humph. That bastard was on a date with me and actually peeked at another woman. He's just a scumbag. Burma happened to hold back a lot of anger and chose Xixing as the object of conversation, explaining the situation while constantly greeting Yamuti's character. As soon as Yamcha was resurrected, Burma went on a date with her beloved boyfriend. Dating women was nothing more than shopping, and it was inevitable that she would encounter beautiful little girls. One of them even approached Yamcha and didn't refuse to chat with her happily. The result was that the vinegar jar flipped over, and then it was divided, and then Bulma locked himself in the laboratory to numb himself, but still hoped that Yamuti could apologize proactively. Xixing, do you think this guy is a jerk? Burma looked at Xixing as she spoke, only to find that Xixing had already turned on her computer and was doing her own thing. Xixing just wanted to eat a melon, but didn't want to hear the mother tiger Burma complain. After listening to the melon he wanted to eat, he turned around and did his own thing. After all, he had just acquired a lot of super technology in his mind. You guy, get out of here. Finally, Xixing was kicked out of the underground laboratory by Bulma, and menopausal women are really difficult to deal with. Let's find a way to build our own laboratory, and what about dealing with artificial humans next? Xixing finished speaking and wanted to ask Dr. Briff for help, but suddenly remembered something and stopped walking. Laboratory. I seem to have one. The memories of being covered in dust are emerging in my mind, either it's the dust or the chaos of this period. I almost forgot that I had a portable laboratory from the beginning, which, although not large, was fully equipped.